Wow, it's weird to be introduced like that and see, why am I even talking like this? It's weird to be introduced like that and see how your life is reflected back to you by somebody else. And you're saying, I did that? I felt that? You know, who is this human being? That's how I felt when Maureen introduced me. Before I tell you about me, I want to tell you about you. So I lost my husband 10 weeks ago.
You're not hearing this.
Maybe this is on top of it. That's the issue. Okay.
Better?
Can you hear me? So this year has been a year of grief for me. It ain't over. And I wasn't leaving my house. I've traveled a lot, and I've done a lot in different countries, and I wasn't going anywhere. And then Lisa emailed and asked me to come here to an organization I never heard of. I didn't know what you did. I looked you up. I Googled. That's about tells me, you know, you can imagine what that told me. I mean, words. I am a word person, but I don't know, but I think it was because of how much I liked Lisa. There was a trust I had in her. And that's what it comes down to, how human beings. And so I said, okay. And I thought, well, you know, it's 6 months down the road. By then I'll be totally healed. I'll be fine. I'll be my usual self, whatever that is. And it didn't feel like that. So I had another bad evening the night before I flew here, wondering, why am I leaving the house? But I'm so glad I did. And I want to tell you, it's all because of you. And whether you know it or not, you are part of my healing journey. I didn't get that coming here at all. But I know that now. I haven't met many of you. I've met only a few. Every single person I meet in this conference is so big-hearted, is so kind, is so open to a woman they don't know from Adam. That's Eve, you know. But I can't believe how much I get from you. And I've said this to Lisa, you know, boy, if this is the way you are in the world, this is the way you're engaging in the world, I want to be part of this. I already asked, so who's in my neighborhood? I asked Maureen, no, not Maureen, I forget the name of the person that as one of the former presidents here. Who is in my area? I need to connect with them. Because you've given me so much. So I'm standing here, I'm the one who's talking, and it always happens. I may be the one talking, I've taught many years. In the end, I get more from you than I believe you ever get from me. That happens every single time, and it especially happens this weekend. So let me tell you a little about myself. I've been teaching Zen, but a kind of Zen that is spiritually based social action. Spiritually based peacemaking. I got into meditation in the early 80s. I couldn't relate to the Japanese teachers who brought Zen into America. And somebody said, there's this Brooklyn guy, a Brooklyn teacher up in Riverdale, New York. Why don't you go check him out? So I did. And I went into a play. I thought I was coming in to do meditation. No, they were having a community meeting around a big dining table. And they were talking about what they were going to do in Southwest Yonkers, New York, which is a very poor area. And they already had opened up a bakery. They were going to hire people from the neighborhood. They were going to build housing for homeless families. They were going to open a child care center. I'm sitting here, I'm thinking I came for meditation. I came for my own peace and quiet. I came from my enlightenment. Look at what these guys are doing. I don't know of any center, any meditation center that talks like these guys. Wow, this is the place for me. And that's it. I never left. I say I found a home in meditation. I never got up. Once I sat down, I never got up. That's what I say about my meditation practice. And I found a home in spiritually based social action. And the man who led that community, his name was Bernie Glassman. He was considered one of the major Zen masters of the West, with a lot of respect in Asia as well. And when his wife died years later, we got married. And then he died last November. So that's my Zen background. I've been teaching and I've been doing some of the projects I'll mention to you. And writing. I've been writing. So we worked in Grayskin in Southwest Yonkers, and we did exactly what that original meeting said we're going to do. We built housing for homeless families. We built child care centers. We hired a lot of people in our bakery. If you eat Ben & Jerry's ice cream with baked goods in it, like brownie, like that chocolate brownie ice, that's the Grayskin Bakery brownies. They make those brownies. They make all the cake products that appear in the Ben & Jerry's cakes. And now I'm going to get a little, but I'm going to do a lot of off tangents. So Bernie's sense was that we're all working in one mandala. Whoever we exclude from the mandala is going to sabotage our work because their needs are not being met. So there's a lot of anger at big companies, big business, corporate nation, whoever sits in the White House, whoever sits in Congress, and all those things. He built something, and the name of it was the Grayskin Mandala, meaning everybody is included in the mandala. And I don't just mean low-income families. I mean everybody. I mean Republicans and Democrats and people who are wealthy and who want to find some kind of role for themselves and not just always writing checks. And government and businesses who are interested in what's going on in the world. We're part of the world. What are we going to do? We make profit, but we can do something with it. So the whole philosophy was nobody is excluded from the mandala. And there were always people arguing about it. How could you open a for-profit when there's so many needy people? You should be not-for-profits. You should be this. You should be that. And he said, our for-profits help fund our not-for-profits. The Grayskin Bakery hires. It does open hiring. Open hiring meaning anybody can come in for a job. Nobody asks you if you've been to prison. Nobody asks you if you're a felon. Nobody asks you if you've had a job before. As long as there's a job and your name is on that list, you're going to get a phone call when the job opens and says, do you want to come in? And then it's up to you. You'll get training. You'll learn how to mix things together, the batter, how to use the machines. You're going to learn how to come on time, because some of those things that some of us take for granted, like day-to-day skills, there are many people who don't have. You're going to get all that. You're going to join a team, and then it's up to you. And you're going to produce quotas of brownies. You beat the quotas, you get bonuses. So now your peers really care about whether you're showing up on time. And that's not just a nice little strategy. That is a strategy of how to help you realize the oneness of life. Think about it. You go to work and you think it's about you. And you think it's, oh, I'll come, I'll do, then I'm waiting for my paycheck, and then I go home. Now you're working as part of a team. And suddenly you realize that the money you're going to make depends not just on you. It depends on the people around you, the people you're working with. So now you're starting to look at them, and somebody comes late, and you say, how come you're late? You're costing me money. He says, my kids, I'm depending on my neighbor for childcare, because low-income families have big issues with childcare. And a lot of the families we worked with were one-parent families. I used to watch the women, sometimes some of them did 2 shifts of work a day. They would finish Grayskin, they'd go somewhere else. And then I'd watch them at 7 in the morning come out with their kids and, in their winter coats and hats and gloves, and the kids are well-dressed, warm, waiting for the school bus to take them to school. And the mothers are in their house coats and you could just put their feet into flip-flops to take the kids to the bus station, and then they would rush to the Grayskin bakery to work. Well, you can imagine the cracks that are there. So how come you're late? Well, I didn't have care for my children. So now you're starting to care about the fact that this woman should have childcare, because it's your business now, it's your money. You see? So that whole thing of creating these teams, and this whole team as one is responsible for producing brownies for Ben & Jerry's ice cream, now brings them a lesson about how I do care what happens to that person. I do care what happens to their children, because it affects me. And we're all interdependent, which means that everything that happens to you affects me and vice versa. But we can talk that forever. Unless you experience it, you don't really get it. So that whole thing of creating brownie teams help people experience what we say in my practice, the oneness of life. And it brought Ben & Jerry's in. And there was a whole story. It's a very classic story in a whole movement of socially engaged businesses, that Bernie met Ben Cohen of Ben & Jerry's, and they went to this walk around the lake. And they talked, and Ben Cohen said, I'll give you guys business, because you're hiring people from Southwest Yonkers. It was not that easy. We almost went broke trying to do that. That's a whole other story. I have great stories about what not to do when you do these things. But that's what happened. Business came into the mandala. Ben & Jerry's was taken over by Unilever. Big global company, headquartered in the Netherlands. Unilever is now part of the Grayskin Mandala. So Grayskin got into open hiring. We have to hire people, whoever comes for a job, we don't ask about their past. This is the way people who have been in prison discharge their duty, whatever it was, to society, come out. They don't meet a dead end. They don't meet a wall when they need to make money and support a family who they've gone back to. And that's called open hiring. They've become big spokesmen for that, not just in this country, but international. So Unilever is now looking into whether they should change guidelines in all the human resource departments of all the companies that they own to really bring in open hiring. So you see, that's what it is. But there were people who were upset that we got government grants for housing. No, this government's no good. We're left-wing radicals. We're here only to help the poor and keep everybody out. Yeah, I can go off into another tangent. Well, let me follow my tangents, okay? Let me follow my tangents. I'm going to read something to you soon. So there's something called a circle. All of you have seen this symbol, huh? What's called in Japanese enso. Have you seen ensos? Ensos are these big circles that are done by these calligraphers. And you may have seen it without knowing the name of it. The classical name of it is enso. And it's like, if you ever seen a calligrapher like Kaz Tanahashi has done classical Ensols. If you can look him up, he's a magnificent artist and calligrapher and translator. And he just does this thing with a paintbrush like this. And you see this magnificent circle. And it has a lot of texture in it. Now I'll tell you something funny about Kaz. Kaz came with us to our Auschwitz-Birkenau retreat in '97. And Kaz at that point had short hair, went in there. And at the end he says, I've decided I'm not cutting my hair ever again. I said, why are you doing that, Kaz? And he says, because I came out of here and I just feel like I have to make a vow coming out of this place that's just going to be with me all my life. So I decided I'm not cutting my hair. And I said to him, well, Kaz, the people who were here actually had their heads shaved, men and women. They had their heads shaved when they were brought in, those who even managed to get there and weren't put straight into the gas chambers. And he said, yeah, but, I've had a shaved head. In Buddhism, it has a particular meaning of leaving home. I'm going to just let my hair grow. To this very day, if you see a picture of Kaz Tanahashi, you see this, he has this long hair that's never been cut. He's thin, and he does these ensos. And you wonder, why does he have this weird long hair? It's because in 1997, in Birkenau, right outside that gate, he said, I have to make a vow. I have to make a vow. And I thought it was a little outlandish at the time, me with my wonderful judgments, And to this very day, he's kept that vow. Kaz makes these magnificent ensos. But these circles, they're textured. You see? They're not just some nice solid line that meets beautifully, there's a circle. They're textured. They're funky. And I think practically all of them have some kind of an opening. They never fully close. They never fully close. Because life has to come in. The mess has to come in. To try to kind of make out of life some kind of a closed, nice, solid circle and stay there safely forever and ever, first, it's a useless thing to do because life is going to push down anything you and I can put in there to protect us. But even if we could, who wants to live like that? Who wants to live? Isn't that a small life in our nice, secure, solid, bound circle? So the idea of these circles is that there's always a mess coming in. Mess. That's my name for it. It's life. I call it a mess because it ain't what I want it to be. I didn't want my husband to die. I didn't want him to have a big stroke 3 years before he died. I didn't want any of that. It's a mess. But the mess has to come in because that's life. And it brings its own energy. And the big question then is, how do I work with the mess? So you're creating a mandala. Whatever your work is, you have your work, maybe you have a business, maybe you have a not-for-profit, maybe you just have your work in a hospital or wherever it is you work, but you have a family, you have your mandala. We each have a mandala. But how do we feel more at ease with letting another energy come in? And more, and a different, and all that. See, that was what Grayskin was about. That wasn't just Grayskin, that's my life, and I believe it's your life too. The big question is, how do we practice with it? So after Yonkers, we actually took it international and created the Zen Peacemakers, which is one of the big families in Zen Buddhism here in the West. And it is known to be the activist family of Zen in the West. So who are our members? So there's someone like Ken Byallen. I visited Ken, I'm from Massachusetts, Western Mass, and Ken was down in Staten Island, New York. Ken, he had a career in social work. New York City, in his late 50s, he comes, we were in California at the time, he flew out to say, you know, I'm being offered the option of early retirement. I don't know, should I do it, shouldn't I do it? If I do it, what do I do with my time? That's it. Then he went back home. And what Ken had noticed over his career was how many kids with emotional, mental diagnoses were basically shunted aside by the public school system. They get very bad education. They're not integrated into regular classrooms. They have a terrible rate of finishing high school. Many don't finish high school. They certainly don't go to college. So before they even know it, they've been shunted aside of the economic mainstream. Before they've even become adults. And he wanted to do something about it. He started, this is just really a social worker. Smart guy, and as uncharismatic as you can imagine. I mean, you would not pick him. In this crowd, you would never pick him for any kind of leadership role. Very low-key, very diffident, speaks very softly, you know, kind of very sweet guy, bespectacled, Jewish, intellectual type guy. But he got this group together to say, what do we do? And another member of the Zen Peacemakers, Paolo Govinia, totally very charismatic, smart, Puerto Rico, the Bronx, all that, comes and says, you know, I started a charter school in the Bronx for Hispanic kids, and it's really made a difference. Think about a school. And they did. So it's now 19 years later. There's 1,000 kids in 4 charter schools in Staten Island. And I visited last Monday. I stayed over at Ken's house the night before. 40%, it's by lottery. You can't choose. It's total, anybody can get in as long as your number's up. And they have a big waiting line, a waiting list. 40% are kids with diagnoses of emotional, mental problems, challenges. Almost all the kids come from families of color, low-income families, immigrant families, where English is not a first language. I mean, I was there. 1,000 of them. Graduation rates are 100% from high school. It's extraordinary. It's really amazing. You could look it up. Their name is Integration Charter Schools. Their college, going on to college, well over 90%. I visited classrooms. I'll tell you why. We actually brought these Native Americans with us. That's what brought me down to see it. You don't have more than 17, 18 kids in a class. You have 2 teachers per class. You have another 2 aides for the class. And I saw kids who were really smart, but they were acting out. Each one had his or her own aide. Kids acting out. Instead of saying, stop acting out, what are you doing, you're this, you're that, they asked if they need a break. And they can say, yes, I need a break because I'm stressed out. And there are these little corners in the classroom where they're set up for taking a break. And you can just sit there and you can do a little artwork. Or they have these little rooms that are beautiful where you can go with someone and you can do a little art, or you have these toys for de-stressing. You know, these rubber balls that you're holding with your hand and you're squeezing. And that's what they do for, 10 minutes. And then at some point they say, are you ready to go rejoin the class? I said, yeah. And they come back. I watched teacher evaluation done by their own peers, where teachers come to your class and they watch you and they write down and then they all meet to talk. But it's all done by teachers. And I watched whole teams, social worker, medical person, teacher, aide, arts person, all involved in spending an hour evaluating one student. What is his background? Who's missing in the house? Is there alcohol fetal syndrome? What's all involved? I saw teachers who were so enthusiastic, so happy, so proud of what they were doing, trying to show off, showing us with such excitement what this work is. I was floored. And this all started with a guy who was given an option of early retirement in his late 50s. You would not pick him in a crowd to do something like this. And here he is. He's already 76. He plans to be CEO till the age of 80. And there's a team in place, the transition. And now they're looking because, they don't have enough. They'd like to put all the schools in one huge campus. But it's not just that, because you see, he trained in Grayskin. He was part of Zen Peacemakers. So it isn't just, we'll have nice buildings for school. No. He says part of the trouble teachers have is, especially teacher aides, is they can't afford housing. We have this disease across this country of not inadequate low-cost housing. I don't mean just for low-income people. I mean for the middle class. He says, I want to build housing on that campus for teacher aides and young teachers starting out who don't have money. Their salaries don't cover what the rentals are in our area. So I want to give them housing. It'll be subsidized, and then it'll be tiered. So as they make more money, their rent will go up a bit. You see? So he's already thinking like that. Oh, there's this, but then they have the problem of housing. What other problems do they have? Do they have a problem of childcare for their children? You see, this is what we did in Grayskin. We said, okay, we start with a bakery, gives jobs. But these people are from the streets, some of them. Also, we need to also create some low-cost housing. But something? Even with housing, and jobs, if they don't have childcare, they can't come to work. Also, we need childcare. And then there was a whole thing when the AIDS thing came out that there was no housing for people with HIV in Yonkers. So we built housing for people with HIV and a day center for HIV, which I was involved in. And I can tell you it, because I did grant writing, and we were one of the highest recognized programs, we, meaning Grayskin, by Health and Human Services, because we were, I think, the first in the country to give alternative therapies to people with HIV. But you see, that's the trouble when you do this kind of work, and you know that, don't you? You start with taking care of a person, and then they tell you what's in the background, and they say, oh, so there's that. So I can do this, and maybe that's all I can do right now. But they also have that. I wonder how we can take care of that. And then you do that, and then they say, oh, but they also have the issue with the kids. Or they also have an issue with an abusive husband. Or they also have this, or they have that. Oh, I wonder what can be done. Now, sometimes I get that it's overwhelming. I really get that. And none of us can do everything. But that's the danger of, you see, that little open area in the circle. It's life coming in. That you thought you were wonderful in your healing, and it's great, you're doing your work, but take a look, there's still that mess over there, and there's that mess over there, and there's that mess over there. And even if I can't take care of it all, I'm aware of it. And I find a way of working with it and not being overwhelmed, not getting angry, not getting indignant, not getting all that. Maybe I start looking for partners. Oh, I can do this. I can't do that. I can't do the housing piece. I wonder who can. I can't do the childcare piece. I wonder who can. I wonder who, you see? When I came here, I told you that I didn't have a clue about the organization. So I said, well, I gotta educate myself. So I sat here and really enjoyed every single talk that was given. and the drumming last night and everything. But something really hit me that was in John Weeks from yesterday. He showed, he said, he showed the history of what happens to, holistic alternative, or we call alternative, I call them holistic, wholeness-based therapies, and how where they came from in the 50s, 60s, and how it all changed. And I think the last stage was, he said, integration in a non-integrated world. And it just then hit me, because he said, we're now putting all the organizations together. Even Western medicine is beginning to integrate this holistic therapies into their models and, kind of putting it together. And I thought to myself, it's not enough. It's not enough for just medical, all these different things to come together. It's important for all of us who work out of a sense of wholeness, out of a sense of completion, to work together. So we need much bigger integration than that, much bigger. We need to see how organizations like this one can work with people who worry about jobs for people, but who again come out of that sense of wholeness, not sectarian, not separating, not with the enemies and all that stuff, but people who work out of that same basis, but who do housing, who do childcare, who do economic recovery, who do all that. We need that kind of integration. That's the kind of integration we need. I came out of John Weeks' presentation feeling that so strongly, that that's the kind of huge collaborative effort we need. So let me just check a watch. So let me talk about, for me, what has been the spiritual foundation of our work? And from when I say spiritual foundation, I mean, what helps me not be overwhelmed? Because believe me, if my spirituality doesn't help me with that, I don't think it has much value. So what helps me do my work? What helps me be at a place like Auschwitz-Birkenau, or go to Rwanda, or go to Srebrenica in Bosnia, or be with the Lakota, as we've been a lot lately, and see the grinding poverty and, what helps me? What helps me in my own year, this last year, or the last 4 years after Bernie had his major stroke with the whole right part of his body paralyzed? What helps me? So there's 3 tenets we've always used. And the first was not knowing. Now, I've heard, we've heard, and even here, I think it was Christine Page, is that good? Brain still working. Not knowing. Not knowing. She talked about the unknown. Not knowing is, there's many ways of looking at that. And I, as a writer, I love that. I love that mysterious connotation of the unknown. I feel every time I sit in front of a white sheet of paper, or the modern equivalent of a white screen on a computer, I'm in that world. But in the Zen Peacemakers, it's a very simple, practical kind of thing. It's like, let go of your attachment to your ideas about a person or a situation. Let go of that. I was talking with Ken Byallen, the founder of Integration Schools. We did a walk in the park before we went to visit the schools in the early morning on Monday. And he says to me, Eve, attachment to a person, attachment is like a dirty word in Buddhism. So we were talking about that. And I said, I don't agree with that. Here in America, that may have been right for monks. But I got to tell you, I'm married to somebody, I'm attached to that person. I'm a parent, I'm attached to my kids. You know, I'm a child, I'm attached to my mother who's still living. I got my attachments. And he says to me, Eve, attachments to a person is not a problem. Attachment to my idea of the person is the problem. And that is not knowing in a nutshell. I have my ideas about the person. And you have your hand up?
There are some people that can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Okay. What should I do about it? Is this better? Here's an example. I wear this. It's a Buddhist robe. And it's important to me. It has a certain significance. But, so I have my ideas about it. It's important. I love this robe. I put it together. I mean, it means a lot. It has a lot of history, this robe, for me. Somebody says they can't hear because the straps are falling over the mic. So now where's not knowing here? Not knowing is, well, I love this robe. But wait a minute. How important is it this minute? So it's like, I love this robe. Can I hold my love lightly? And I always, in my teaching, I've always used this hand motion. It's fine to love the robe. It's fine to love all kinds of things. It's fine to have feelings and ideas and opinions. I have lots of opinions about things. How tightly do I hold them? Can I just hold them like this rather than like this? That is not knowing. It's really simple. Can I just, instead of holding my love for my history, my tradition, my everything that has meant so much to me, this robe, instead of holding it like this, can I hold it like this? And the second tenet is bear witness. Bear witness to what's going on, not to your ideas of what's going on. Bear witness to what's going on. Somebody said they can't hear. I'm not thinking, well, it's their problem. I'm not thinking, it's not my fault. I should talk to Jared, is it? Yeah. Look to Jared and say, yeah, he's messing up. You know? No, just bear witness to what is. People can't hear. That's bearing witness. Bear witness to the situation. Plunge in. Plunge is a big word for us. Plunge. Don't hold on. Jump in. And the third is loving action. Now, what's loving action? In this case, I said, hey, man, I'm taking it off. Loving action is very simple. It's the action that comes out of not knowing and bearing witness. It's very simple. You don't have to know what to do ahead of time. You don't have to plan it. You don't have to be the genius who wrote that whole outline of what to do and how to develop things. And no. You just have to not know, let go of your ideas, bear witness, and something is going to come up. Something. It can be small. It'll be like this. But every one of those is this practicing of this muscle of letting go of my attachment to my ideas. Not to the ideas. I've got lots of ideas. Great ideas. I got stories. I can keep you here for a day. Let go of my stories. At this moment, what needs to arise? That's it. That's the whole spiritual foundation. When I talked to Ken, I used to hear him say that a lot when he would come up to Western Mass. He would say, all I did, I just had these 3 tenets. from day to day, I would let go of all my ideas of what I should do, what people expect, how I'm afraid, how I ask myself, who the hell do you think you are to do this? You have no experience. You're not even an educator. I let go of that. And then I just bear witness. Today, what do I need to do? And then the action is very clear. I'll give you a really beautiful example. Something that's moved me so much when I heard this. Another member of ours, and these are now senior teachers, members, Grover Gaunt. So his name is Grover Cleveland Gaunt III. He comes from this nice English family. No, he's American, but his family's old England. I think that the last name you even find in one of the Shakespeare historical plays, John of Gaunt. And as white as could be. 6 foot, blonde. He was blonde. He's now 72, so it's silver. Blonde, blue-eyed, kind of this pink skin of a California surfer. Had a whole kind of history, but really got into Zen peacemaking in a big way 22 years ago. And what he did, so we were in Auschwitz-Birkenau. He came with it from the beginning. And then he said, I want to bring this Native American guy. And there's a whole story of how he went to the Lakota, to the Sioux in Pine Ridge, met with a medicine man, Virgil Killstraight, quite a character, Virgil Killstraight, and brought, second year, he brings somebody from the Lakota Nation to Auschwitz-Birkenau. I say, what's he doing that for? What's the connection? You know? Wonderful guy, Tuffy Sierra, Indian cowboy, rodeo, you know, bronco rider. Tuffy comes, doesn't say much, leaves. Next year, Virgil Killstraight, the Oglala medicine man, comes. Doesn't say much, leaves. Next year, Tiokasin Ghost Horse, who has the First Nations radio broadcast, it's broadcast in public radio stations across the country, comes. This time they do a little ceremony because we have all kinds of religious leaders there. We have Buddhist, we have Catholic Mass, and we have the Jewish Kaddish. And we have, that's the prayer for the dead, and we have had Muslim, Sufi imams come. They lead a little service, come. And Grover always goes back to Pine Ridge, spends a lot of time there. So it took 16 years to build up relationships, and we started our retreats with the Lakota in 2015. They've happened every single year, every single summer since. But this is a story about Grover. So he got involved with the Lakota. And you really got to picture what trust, because this is this big white guy, blonde hair. I mean, the image of what you might think of as a colonialist white person. Then he leads a street retreat. We do retreats on the streets. No money, no change of clothes. You just go and live on the streets for a week. He leads one of those, and a guy comes in there who he's never met. And by the end of their time together, he discovers that this guy leads a big not-for-profit that's based in Brazil, connecting and empowering the indigenous tribes, indigenous peoples all over the world. It's called De Justicia. And it's based in Brazil, very big, and funded by Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation. Tells Grover to come and start coming and meet other indigenous tribes. So he goes, a few others start going to these meetings, gatherings of the indigenous nations from all over. And what he always wants to do is he hears about the indigenous tribes living off the Amazon River. And that's what he wants to do. He tells me, one day I'm going to join them, I'm going to take their boat up down the Amazon. And I want to meet these tribes, these people who are hidden away, you know, so secluded. I really want to do that. And sure enough, that's going to happen. He's going to join the person who heads the Justicia, whose name I forgot. He's going to go up the Amazon and meet them. And he tells me. So he comes back, and we had agreed that I would also join him when that happened, but that didn't happen because Bernie was sick with a stroke. Comes back, I say, how was it? He says, well, a strange thing happened. So the day we go, we have all this travel to even get down to the Amazon basin. We're there, we're going to take a boat up the river. I get up and I fall badly, and I twisted my leg in the craziest way. And it took me a while, I couldn't get up. I finally got up, and people looked at me and said, you are green, what happened to you? Well, I still don't know what medically happened to him, but something happened there in his foot that he was in humongous pain and he could barely walk. And he looks at that boat and he says to himself, how am I going to do this? And then he said to me, Eve, the minute that came up for me, I knew that that's exactly how I have to go and visit with the indigenous tribes. I can't go there walking straight and tall, like I usually do, and go there and visit them. I, the quintessential white man, am going to go really like tottering into this boat, literally leaning on a person on either side of me so that I can get in there. I'm not going to be able to help with anything. I'm not going to be independent. And when we get there, I'm going to be getting out like that in full dependence, needing help with everything, not able to do a thing for myself, and asking for their help. And that is the right way for me to go. Now look at the 3 tenets here. This man had been thinking about this and planning this for a long time. He had a sense of his body. He's in great shape. And, he had the sense of he's going to go and do this. And you realize what a letting go that had to be. It was like, I have this. It ain't going to happen. And this is fine. In fact, he said, it's even better. It's even better. I'm plunging in like this. And now, here it is. This is me. This is me, folks. Disabled, dependent, in pain. This is me. And this is you. And how are we going to meet? What's going to happen? And he described to me the wonderful action that came out of it, how they helped him, how they gave him the best, bedding, whatever they had there. And their houses were on stilts right over the river. How they helped him up. How they brought all their healers to heal him. How they did this special food to heal him and special herbs. And he used all their medicine for himself. But how happy they were to give him something. And not to always receive things from the white people, but to actually give. And to be able to showcase how much they have to give. And when he told me that, I practically cried on the phone. Now, it takes years of practice for someone like me to even get to be able to make that switch. To say, I have my idea of how I'm going, and guess what? Life came right into that circle. So what do? Oh, I guess I'm just bearing witness now to life as it is, not to my ideas about it. The situation as it is, not my sense of it. And now, what's the action that comes up? He could have said, I'm not going. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. I'll be a burden on you. I better not go. You can imagine. He said, no. This is the best way to go. And that's how he got down the Amazon. I've been speaking a lot. Could we just have 5 minutes of just meditation, please? And again, feet on the ground. And really just see your breath going in and out of your belly. Really try to just breathe like a baby. You ever see babies breathe? The stomach goes in and out like that. That's what we want to do. Don't worry about being thin. Really let your belly go in and out fully. And if you have distracting thoughts, I always say imagine a funnel from your mind to your, to your belly. And bring the energy down from the brain to your belly. Just bring it down that funnel and breathe in and out. Do that for just a few minutes. Thank you very much. I'm just going to read a little bit from a book that I worked on with a collaborator. It's not sold over there because it's only coming out in February. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that you can pre-order it already on Amazon. Okay, forget I said that. Believe me, I'm big supporter of independent bookstores here. If I could pre-order it that way, I'd say it a minute. It's called The Book of Householder Koans. And this is a galley, so it's the only one like this. And I sent the corrected galley back last Friday. But koans, you may have heard of a koan like, what's the sound of one hand clapping? It's these little weird little tales and little aphorisms and dialogues between teacher and student. And the idea is to always take the rug from under the feet of the student. It's to help him or her get into the space of not knowing. So, like, what's the sound of one hand clapping? Well, you can tell, like you say, well, one hand? How does one hand clap? You see, the whole idea is that it takes you out of your certainty, out of what you know, into not knowing. And then it tells you, okay, so bear witness. And now what's the answer? And you'll come to the answer if you do that. But I did this with a woman who is the abbot of the Zen Center of Los Angeles. And all those koans came from a monastic tradition in China, mostly, and some from Japan. And we said, we're in the West. Almost all of us are householders. We have families, we have jobs, we have kids. Let's develop a new koan collection relating to these lives. And that's why it's called the Book of Householder Koans. And I'm very proud of it not because of anything I write here, but because there's almost nothing like it in the West, from what I know. So I think it's important that our lives are smack in the middle of it. And that the practice is in this life. It isn't just when you're sitting on a nice cushion. So this is the first one. And this is a story. Ensho's mother died when he was not quite 2 years old. It was a loss he felt throughout his life, this intense ache for the mother he would never know. One day, 70 years after her death, his mother's ashes were returned to the family. Ensho held the ashes in his hands and then gently scattered them on the ground. Now I know you. He then lowered his body onto the earth in a deep bow 3 times. And the question is, why did Ensho bow? Now, I know this man. I knew this man. His real name was Raoul Berger. He died some years ago. And he was Argentinian. His family was Jewish from Germany. They came to Argentina to flee the Nazis. He was born right afterwards, and his mother died right after that. So you can imagine it was a refugee family. His mother dies, and he feels this terrible loss that's with him his entire life, as if there's something incomplete about him. There's something wrong with him. If only he had had a mother who had raised him, he would be different, and life would be different. We can all relate to that, can't we? Now, this is the reflection. As Ensho grew into adulthood, he felt deep in his being that something precious and fundamental was missing. Throughout his life, he ached for a mother he would never know. He tried many different things to address the suffering. He meditated, but his body trembled. He engaged in various therapies, but resolution escaped him, and he pursued alternative energy treatments, but even they only brought temporary relief. One day, in the midst of a deep spiritual crisis, he met his Zen teacher. When he formally took refuge in the Buddha way, he was given the name Ensho. Enso, which I talked about before, which means circle of completion. Through the gift of this name, his teacher pointed to a spiritual truth that Ensho himself was a circle of completion in which everything, including his mother's death and the suffering that followed, is a complete circle. How do you live this completeness when what you experience is unresolved suffering. Spiritual teachers from all traditions, meaning the mystical teachers, say that fundamentally you are complete and whole just as you are. And yet there seems to be something missing. And the pain of something missing propels you on a spiritual quest for completion. And yet every activity and circumstance of your life, no matter how painful, is the life of a Buddha. It is painful to want things to be other than they are. This pain, too, is a circle of completion. The circle of completion moves in mysterious ways, or perhaps it seems so because we lack the sight to see its intricate and timeless workings. In this mysterious way, Ensho's mother came back to him. Her son came back to her too, just not in ways expected or imagined. In that moment, Ensho's being resonated. Now I know you. Tell me, what did he realize? He found a beautiful wooded spot, held the sparse ashes in his hands, and gently scattered them on the earth. He lowered himself onto the ground, first his knees, then his elbows, and finally his forehead touched the warm earth. In this manner, he bowed 3 times. What was he bowing to? You see, I have deep faith and some realization that I, as I am, brokenhearted as I am, uncertain, anxious, what's going to be now after 33 years of working with a man who meant so much to me, am a circle of completion. It isn't that when I get out of all that, I will be complete. Right now, I'm a circle of completion. Right now, I'm the perfect manifestation of the life force. I don't have to change to be that perfect manifestation. I will change, believe me. I can't help it. We change faster than we're aware of it. I will come to a conference like this one. That's going to change me. I will go to a memorial for a person who died tomorrow. That's going to change me. I will have a drink of water. That's going to change me. And then each time, I will again be a circle of completion. Every single time, I am a circle of completion. I am a perfect manifestation of life as it is. One of the reasons I'm very moved being here is that it is so clear to me the importance of touch, whether it's skin on skin or whether it's, a couple of inches difference. Isn't that funny? We're in our skin and skin somehow separates us, Skin is that layer that keeps us separate, but touch that skin actually takes that all away completely. For me, my sense of how I want to be touched is that whoever touches me, in that touch, gives me that sense, you, Eve, in pain, are a circle of completion. That is the energy that I get, is what you're all about. This sense of that as you are, this patient, this client, with illness, with pain, with this, with that, with disability, you are a circle of completion. That for me is giving no fear. One of the things about Zen, we say Zen is all about giving no fear. How do we do that? How do we take away the fear, the anxiety that people have? I don't have to tell you anything about all the layers that are added to illness, the layers of shame, of self-blame, of blaming others, of all the second guessing of what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to me, and look at me, it must be my fault, it's this fault, I don't have to tell you, you can tell me about it. Do you realize what is the potential of touching someone with that sense of as you are, you're a circle of completion? I think Catherine Page spoke about that. Everything is love. So in my 3 tenets thing, I said, oh, do I experience that? Well, let me see. Let me bear witness to that. Is everything love? I still don't know the answer. But my language for that is everything as it is a circle of completion. It's going to change, and then that becomes a circle of completion. And it's going to change again, and that's what it is. There's, you've probably, many of you have seen representations of the Buddha. Usually he's shown the Enlightened one. He refers to Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived 2,500 years ago and started this new thing called Buddhism that he never wanted to do anyway, you know. But that's what happens. So it's usually shown him like this, and he's smiling all the time, which makes me, I'm Jewish, I don't believe in smiling all the time. But, and something that's very moving to me is, you know, for hundreds of years after he died, he had said to people, do not make an image of me. And people didn't make images of him for a couple of 100 years. And then it changed. You know, people wanted to make images. But you know what image they did make for the first 200 years? Of his footprints. Isn't that beautiful? They made images of footprints. You know, like they said, this is where he walked. He walked, you know, he was always barefoot and everything. He walked here. I'm always very moved by that. I feel like that applies to all of us. You know, we're all going to leave footprints. And someone's going to say, here's where she walked. Here is where he walked. Wow, you know? And it reminds me, because in the very beginning, I forget who, before Catherine Page spoke, someone, may have been Lisa or someone, said, you know, we invoke the land and where we are here. The Hyatt Regency is on this land. I would also like to invoke all the peoples and animals that left their footprints here. These are really the ancestors of this land, and we have to ask their permission in some way to meet here. That's how I feel. The buffalo that roamed here, the First Nations that roamed here, and don't roam here now. You know, those are the footprints that are here in this room. You may not get it. They are here in this room. So that's what they did with the Buddha. But then when they finally started making representations of him, you know, so a famous one is that he's with his left hand like this, and he's sitting, and his right hand touches the earth, like this, or like this, I don't remember, but it's touching the earth. Now that comes from the story that night he spent under the Bodhi tree, where he said, I am not getting up till I see the truth of life. All these delusions came up for him, and Mara, the great lord of delusions, said, you're a nobody. You're a nothing. Who do you think you are on this search? So what? Yeah, you're a prince, big deal. You left it. Nobody knows who you are anymore. Nobody cares. I am the great being. I have money. I have power. I have beautiful women. I have great, great wisdom. I have 1 million PhDs, and I have all the money in the world. Who the heck are you? And he said, the earth is my witness for what is the truth of me. The earth is my witness. And that's when he touched the earth. And the earth, they say, the earth cried out, I am his witness. I am his witness. That's why there's this representation of him touching the earth. The earth was his witness. And so when you're touching people, you're not touching the earth, but it's the same thing. That touch is the witness that we are all enlightened as we are. We are all circles of completion. You, the client, the patient, is a circle of completion. That's what this touch is a witness to. And that touch is a witness to that I, too, the person who's working with you, am a circle of completion. And even the pain and the malaise and the illness is a circle of completion. That this touch is a witness to all that. That's how I see it. That's my limited experience of it. But that's the huge potential that there is. That you're all witnesses, that everyone, especially the person you're working on, as he or she is, with all the stuff, is a circle of completion. And it's never complete. It's a funky circle. That's what makes it perfect. Funkiness is what makes it perfect. It's this life, it's a mess, and it's going on, and you're getting this, and you're getting that, and you're thinking that you have to go home, and you're going to have, and this is waiting for you, and this is waiting for you. This is what makes a circle of completion. My husband had a big stroke January 2016, just 10 days before his birthday. And it left him really paralyzed. We took him to the Taub Clinic. I took him to the Taub Clinic in Birmingham, Alabama, which was founded by Edward Taub, who's one of the great neuroplasticity researchers and doctors, one of the first ones who did a lot of work. And why he's in Birmingham, Alabama is a great story by itself, but I won't tell it to you. I'd like to leave really time for questions, so I just want to cut through. So Edward Taub was 85 years old, and it looks like both men came from the same Brooklyn. You know, they were both Brooklyn guys. It sounded like. And he went to the same elementary school, of all things. And at the age of 85, they say he only comes to work 6 days a week, that's all. But he said to my husband, to Bernie, he says, he has this great training, that's why we went down there. And so sure enough, we went there twice, and the first time they worked on walking, and they really helped him walk with a cane, very, well, but, certainly better than before. And then the next time they helped him with his arm so that he could little by little cut his own food and things like that. And I asked Edward Taub, will he ever get any sensitivity in his right under his foot so that he could walk? Because there he was. Every night I used to put CBD salve on his body. And let me tell you, you probably know just easily as well, the left side of his body was alive, warm, flushed. The blood was flowing. That right side was cold and corpse-like. Not fun to touch, frankly. And I'll do the salve on him, and he couldn't feel it. This was so hard, he couldn't feel anything. So I asked Edward, will he get the sensitivity back of his right foot so that he could feel the ground under his feet, like the Buddha did, And he said he may or may not, but he doesn't need it to walk. That's what he said. So we come back home, and I watch Bernie walk. This is such a dynamic, crazy man. You can't imagine the energy this guy had. And friends of mine said to me he was the freest man they ever met. And I would watch him walk. And I realized that what trust he had to have to keep on walking, because that sensitivity never came back. Think about it. We tend to go towards what we know. So the left foot could feel that earth. What does it take to walk with a foot you don't know and you can't feel, and you're just going to do it? You're just going to do it. He didn't even have the comfort of the Buddha. The Buddha could touch the earth, and the earth would be his witness. He couldn't feel the earth. So what did he rely on? Don't, when we do sitting, what's the first thing whoever leads the meditation say? Feel the ground under your feet. What happens when you can't feel the ground under your feet? And I mean not just concretely, I mean metaphorically. What do you rely on? And I watched my husband, and he relied on this circle of completion. Every moment as it is perfect as it is. He had that, well, I'm sure he had that experience, and he certainly had that total faith. Every moment is a circle of completion. And that involves not knowing. So if once I was used to walking everywhere and flying everywhere and going on the streets for days and sleeping on the streets and going here and going there, I can't do that. I used to think there was only one way of walking. Edward Taub shows me that that's not only one way of walking. So it's like I hold my ideas loosely. And now I bear witness. There's nothing feeling here. There's something feeling here. I have to go up the steps. I have the banister. And what's the action that comes up? I'm going to walk. And I'm going to walk. And there'll be knowing here. I can feel the earth. And here, nothing. And he had his falls, terrible falls, you know. One kind of hit his head, and there he was, unconscious in a pool of blood. We had those things. Of course. Nobody says they won't happen. I mean, if you're going to try to keep your circle closed because you're afraid that it won't happen, guess what? It's going to happen anyway. So just get, and just do it. Let go, hold it loosely, and now bear witness and walk, and walk, and walk. And he knew he was a circle of completion. Totally, he knew that. We were once interviewed, for something. And so the woman finally said to him, well, how do you feel about what happened to you? And he was speaking very slowly at the time because he suffered from aphasia. Is that what it's called? Yeah. So he said, it's like a glass vase. It speaks like this. Shattered, fell on the floor, and it broke into many pieces. Tell me, is it any less perfect than it was before because it is now in a million pieces? Each piece is perfect as it is. And then he said, I functioned completely, and I did this, and I did that. Then I had a major stroke. Tell me, am I any less perfect now than I was before? That's what he said to her. That sense of you are perfect as you are, whether you're a one or broken into a million pieces. To do that, each of you, and I, even though I'm not a therapist like you, but in my way, that's what I try to do for others. You have the quintessential skill and ability to do it through your energy therapy, through your touch. That is such a miracle to give people, and you all can do it and are doing it because I experienced that this weekend. I experienced that this weekend from all of you. I'm just going to finish because I want people to ask questions. You know the chanter Krishna Das? Some of you may know him. He chants beautifully. He came to visit a week ago, Friday. came to Massachusetts. And he was very close to us, very close. So he comes and says, you know, the last time I saw Bernie, you weren't there, and I took him to breakfast to his favorite diner. You know, and that's quite a job to take Bernie out. But I took him in a car, and we're sitting, and he's getting this big pile of blueberry pancakes, which is what he always got, leaves most of it on the plate, and then gets up and says to me, I need to go to the bathroom. So he gets up, and then he falters. And I look up, he says, and I said, you're okay, Bernie, you're okay? And he straightens, and then pauses, but he gets this, you know, and again, one foot doesn't feel anything, right? And he says, scary, but okay. And then Krishna the Das turns to me and he says, Eve, he didn't say scared. He said, scary. Scary, but okay. But okay, you see. So now what I would love, if you're up for it, and you've given me so much attention, I'm so grateful to you. But I think questions are really important because it's a great interaction. And you know, and I don't feel like I'm the one who has to answer. I'm feeling like anybody else can answer too. But I really invite, there's a microphone there, which we set up specially for this. And it would be great if you came to the mic and asked a question. Yes, please. Would you speak to the mic?
Where is it?
It's right here. Right behind Jared.
I'll show you where he is. Is it on? It's not on.
Ta-da! Magic. From what source can we read your stories? And especially the one about Grover, but all of them really. This has been really, really beautiful and timely.
Oh, wow. I don't have a printed source for those stories. Sometimes I recount them in my blog. I do a blog, and some of these stories you'll read in my blog. So much is going on all the time. I mean, there's so much beautiful stuff. But this is a simple answer. I don't have it.
Okay.
I'll tell you this much. After my husband died, I had to move. I stayed in the house, but I had to move some rooms around because I was renting rooms to somebody. And I found a whole journal that I had kept that I hadn't looked at from the Grayston years in the 1980s when we built Grayston in Yonkers. And that was really, so there's where I actually wrote stories down of what it was to build Grayston, and it was quite something. Most of them I've forgotten. But, so I'm wondering about what to do with those. But I don't have, there's no written source for all these stories.
Can you tell me Grover's objective again about going to the Lakota?
So I don't know if you've worked with Native Americans. The people who we worked with, it took a lot of trust, for good reason, for good reason. And so when he started bringing Lakota people to Auschwitz, you see, so it was building that relationship. But what was amazing, going back to what John Weeks said, it's like he began to put all these things together, things that made no sense. But he said, they'll benefit from this. I'd say, why? They're not Jewish. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it came like that. And he every year has spent enormous amounts of time in Pine Ridge, not helping. Not, oh, I'm going to come and I'm going to help you. No. He just comes. He lives with Tuffy and his wife, Alice, in their trailer in Pine Ridge. He helps out with the horses a little bit. He just hangs out. Meets the family, meets all the million relatives that everybody has, you know. He knows everybody by name. I can't believe how he knows hundreds of people with their Lakota names. That's all he comes to do. He doesn't come to help. He just comes to hang out. And that has built and built and built and built. And now we go there every summer. We brought the two Native American elders who are starting an immersion school in Lakota because they're losing the language. When you lose the language, you lose the culture. So they started an immersion school in Cheyenne River Reservation. So we brought them to see Ken's school because Ken had all kinds of ideas of what bridges it can build and provide them with more resources. So, you know, all this came together now, all these interesting connections. Grover just goes to Pine Ridge all the time and just hangs out. Doesn't look like he's doing anything. And so much is blooming because of what he's doing. That's all
Thank you.
I can tell you.
Thank you for coming and touching us.
Thank you for a wonderful lecture. My question is, what is the name of your book?
Oh,
I couldn't hear.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say it. Lisa,
You're responding to a question.
oh, okay. So it's called The Book of Householder Koans.
Co-
Koans, K-O-A-N-S, K-O-A-N, and it's called The Book of Householder Koans.
A Kohen.
And the
Thank-
subtitle is Waking Up in the Land of Attachment.
Waking up.
in the Land of Attachments.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, and thank you. If in fact you thought as a child that you would like to be a hermit someday, would that be your own personal koan?
Is that my, so what is my koan there? When you ask, this is my koan, you're referring to some kind of an edge where you're not comfortable and you don't know how to act. So part of working with your koan is to say, so what's my question? What's my edge? I think right now, because I've been so involved for so many years, there is an edge there. What changes are going to come about? Will I travel as much as I did? Will I write more than I did before? Will I be lonelier than I was before? I'm pretty darn sure I will be. At least that's how I experience it. How much connection with people do I need to keep me going? And yet at the same time, when do I need to withdraw? How much am I using activity to get away from my grief? That's a big one for me. When I was a child, I was afraid of people. That's really, that's why I wanted to be a hermit. I was just afraid of people, very simple. I came from a Holocaust background family, mother in concentration camps, all that stuff. And I was afraid. I was afraid of life. I was afraid of people. I was afraid of the world. I couldn't speak. Couldn't find my voice. So of course you want to be a hermit. And, T.S. Eliot has a poem about that, that eventually if we go far enough, we come back to the same place where we were before. So I may go back to some kind of hermit-like life. It will not have been the way it was then.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little emotional about this. First of all, I want to thank you for the beauty of your presence. And the second is, in the groups that you're with, are there prayers being said for the protection of the Amazon?
Yeah. I probably don't have much of an answer for you. I really think that in that area, I'm really in a space of not knowing. I don't mean not knowing as ignorance. I mean very engaged, active not knowing. I fight off all the angers that many people feel. It's not like I'm not dealing with that. And grief for what's going on. I have different voices in me. You know, the voice of what we caused, we can solve, we can resolve. I have a voice that says, there's no life without loss. I think that we're going to lose a lot more. I think we're only in the beginning of the curve of loss. And I think we better learn how to work with it and how to be with it. At the same time, I am amazed at the incredible goodwill and the deepening, deepening, deepening desire to save something of our world. And grief is part of that journey. And I don't think we'll be able to do this without grieving over loss. And prayers are part of that journey for sure. Yeah. I do a service every morning, and behind my house is a beautiful Kuan Yin. She is the embodiment of compassion in Asia, Kuan Yin, very well known. And it's a woman. And it was made, it's a wood Kuan Yin, pretty hollow at this point with all the critters taking shelter inside. And I'll tell you this, you know how I got it? There was a woman who lived nearby. She was a school teacher. And she had a student, a high school student, and he was a neo-Nazi. She knew that about him. But he liked her a lot, and he came to her and asked her what she could do for her. He'd like to do something for her. Maybe create something for her, because he was a carpenter. And she said, make me a Kuan Yin. And he asked, what's that? Well, she said, well, look it up. And he built this Kuan Yin. And she's a beauty. She's a beauty. This neo-Nazi young man built her a Kuan Yin. When she died, she deeded it to where we were, and that's how we have it in our house, in the back of the house. And every single morning, I go there and I do a service that essentially prays for compassion for people who are ill, for where illness is, for where disease is. But you see, I think disease has a lot of energy. And I think you know that, because that's why you're in the profession you're in. Disease has energy, and we here, we are diseased. We are not at ease. We are diseased. That's what's going on in the Amazon and elsewhere. And there's energy in disease. It's not just black. It really isn't. I've gone to Auschwitz-Birkenau easily 20 times. It isn't just black. It isn't just funereal. It isn't just people. How could they do this? And you watch, they have so many tourists coming in and out, and I watch their faces. It's like, get me out of here. You know, it's like that. We spent 5 days there. Because by staying with the disease, plunging, letting go of all the movies and the books and the ideas and the hate and all the emotions we have around it. Letting it go. And now bear witness. Stay there. Don't run away. Stay there, stay there, stay there. Plunge in. Something comes up. And what comes up is usually has a lot to do with wholeness. I can't explain it. It's just an amazing, believe me, when we did it in '96, we did it as a one-shot deal. Nobody imagined we were going to do it every single year for almost 25 years now. But there's something that comes up. So I know it comes up out of disease. Auschwitz is the center of a huge disease. It's where one people decided that everybody who else was not like them are no good and let's kill them. It was the very antithesis of diversity is what Auschwitz is. So what do? We bring as many different people as we can. Different people, the Lakota, and from Africa, and from Pakistan, and from everywhere in different religious traditions. And it's a mess, and they fight. You don't want to know what happens in our retreats. Somebody once, this German man once, we always chant the names of people who died. This German man once came up with the idea we should also chant the names of the guards who were there. We had a riot. We had a riot. Everybody was all into wholeness till that suggestion came up. That's it. We're out of here. We never come back. Wholeness is not easy. But disease can have a very positive building energy. We have a Kaddish service that we say there. So Kaddish is a Jewish memorial service. The original is in Aramaic. The rabbi usually does. And it's written out for everybody can follow. There was an English translation, beautiful one done by Peter Levitt, a wonderful poet. Best translation I've ever seen of it. By themselves, different people start doing different translations of the Kaddish, and they want the Kaddish recited, and it's recited over big crematoria sites where 1 million people were killed there, right? I'm bringing my husband's ashes there next month, as it turns out. That was the only instruction he left. When I die, I want my ashes sprinkled in Birkenau. Suddenly they did it. We didn't do it. We didn't plan this. It came out of the energy of the disease. Translations into French. The French folks got together at night and said, let's do this in French, and they translate. German. First time I heard Kaddish in German in Auschwitz, I cried like crazy. We have Finnish, Spanish, Greek, Italian. And the most amazing thing is that some years ago, my friend, Palestinian, Sami Awad from Bethlehem, where I used to work, comes there, brings a few of his people. It's really a no-no for Palestinians to go to Auschwitz, I can tell you, for political reasons. They came as a secret. What do you think they do one night? They do a translation of the Kaddish into Arabic. And now when we stand on the crematorium and we, do memorial service for all those people who were gassed there, we also read a translation of the Kaddish in Arabic. And it goes on for 10 minutes. Everybody wants their translations read. So you just do it. It's not a long prayer. It's a prayer, if you know that the Kaddish memorial, that says, in the face of death and horror, the name of God is elevated more and more. Oneness. The one. The one. Always invoking the one in the face of the biggest horror. And we have translations of that in every single language that people on their own spontaneously created. So in disease, there is energy. And I think there's energy in our planetary disease. I really do. And what we do with it is going to be up to us. There's a great koan, classical koan, Master Uman, Chinese, great Shan, master of the first millennium, said, illness and medicine subdue each other. The whole world is medicine. What are you? That's the koan. Illness and medicine subdue each other. They're in proportion. No matter what the illness is, there is medicine. Illness and medicine subdue each other. The whole world is medicine. Everything can be medicine. Why? Because we're a circle of completion. Everything, depending on circumstances and what you're up for, can be medicine. But the big question is, what are you? And we're each asked to present our answer to that every single moment of our life, I think. And I think that has something to do with your question.
Hi,
Please tell me your name. I should have asked.
my name is
earlier.
Sue,
Thank you.
and thank you for saying Kaddish in Polish for my family,
Yeah,
truly.
really.
My question to you is, have you been on the table yet and received a healing touch
Wait, I
treatment?
can't hear you.
Have you been on the table yet and received a healing touch
I have
treatment?
not. I have
Ladies, we need to make this happen. You think? Lisa?
not. That's the
Joel?
best question I've heard yet.
You've come here with such an open heart, and we truly embrace what you have had to say to us, but you haven't experienced what we have to offer you. Thank you for what you've given us. Please make this happen.